Olivia back again, hopefully with an answer to another one of your does it actually matter questions. And this one is about MPs, like the individual person that you elect to represent you in Ottawa. What the heck do they do in the run of a day, and does it matter? Samara, a really, really amazing organization here in Canada that works with democracy stuff, their two co-founders actually just wrote a book called Tragedy in the Commons, which is a summary of exit interviews. For the first time ever, somebody asked politicians once they left that career, tell me about the job. What did you think you did well? What do you think needs a lot of work? And the one thing that popped out at me from that book was that it's totally inconsistent. Like, the MPs themselves don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And I think that's partially our fault, because we don't give them a job description, and the only evaluation they get of whether they're doing a good job or not is whether they get reelected. Once every 4 years isn't great feedback. So it's really difficult to say in the run of the day what exactly an elected representative is supposed to do. So I'm going to tell you about the different spaces that they work in so that you get an idea of how many hats they have to wear. The first one that you're probably really familiar with is the House of Commons itself, because we all see clips from Question Period. But Question Period is actually an abnormality in the run of the day in the House. I did the House of Commons page program, amazing program for anybody going into first year university who's bilingual, just a plug. But most of the speeches that go on in the House of Commons are like 20 minutes long. They're really, really significant. And it doesn't actually allow for a lot of debate back and forth. People don't really ask each other meaningful questions. They're not actually looking for answers. They're looking to score points. So I would argue that the House of Commons isn't really where a lot of work gets done. A lot of work, though, does get done in committee, which is when the elected representatives from each party are broken down into smaller groups, and they get to go and focus specifically on the task that they've been given. So sometimes it'll be finance, or it might be agriculture, or it might be fisheries and oceans. And those people are able to become kind of experts in the committee that they're placed on, because they hear expert testimony and they have witnesses come in and speak to them. And anytime something's going to become a law, it needs to go through a committee process first. So that's good news, because those are actually pretty constructive conversations. Another place where these people get a chance to kind of have really meaningful influence on what's going on is when they're meeting inside their own caucus. So this isn't when they're dealing with things between parties. This isn't when the Liberals are fighting with the NDP and the Conservatives over a piece of legislation. No, this is when the Liberals are sitting down together and saying, okay, what do we believe in? What's going to be our stance on things? So caucus is very, very private, and it happens in once a week, and sometimes they have smaller regional caucuses or caucuses for different purposes. But the big one meets once a week, and that's where they decide what they believe in as a party. So that's pretty important. One of the other things that they do is office work. So all elected representatives at the federal level have an office here in Ottawa that often organizes their schedule and helps them just deal with the day-to-day life here in Ottawa. But the constituency office back in the riding where they were elected does a lot of one-on-one work with individual citizens. They kind of intervene where citizens aren't finding bureaucracy is working for them, so they help out with passport applications or filling out forms or answering questions about what government does. The MPs themselves don't do a ton of that work, but the people that they hire in their offices do. And the other space where elected representatives get a chance to make a really big difference is when they're ministers or critics. So in the same way that I was talking about the committees earlier, how they talk about specific problems or things that need to be dealt with in government, whoever has formed government gets to appoint ministers. So that's one of these elected representatives who's going to deal with big files, who's going to deal with, again, finance or transport or health or Aboriginal affairs and northern development. And then across from them, on the opposition side, there's always going to be someone who's responsible for knowing that file just as well as they do and holding the government accountable for what they do on that file. So that's a little bit of what they do in the day-to-day. They're always running back and forth between Ottawa and their constituencies. It's a It's a really tiring life, so I'm always going to come to the defense to advocate for these politicians that so many of you scorn. And if you want to hear a little bit more about my personal experiences with them, just let me know and I'll be in touch. But in the meantime, hope that was helpful, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys. Bye.